It's Children's Mental Health Week, and we're exploring the power of paying attention to what's going on inside, discovering clues from our thoughts, our feelings, and our bodies. Hello, I'm Kathryn Lovewell, author of The Inner Detective Journal, a gentle guide to help young children make sense of their inner world, especially when life feels difficult. We are shining a light on the importance of children's mental health, so every child has the opportunity to learn skills to respond to themselves kindly when things go wrong, which they inevitably will. So let's hear from one of our special guests now. So, welcome to another wonderful discussion about children's mental health. Today, I am privileged to be joined by Aysha Jamall, who is the Chief Care Officer of the Centre of Inclusive Care, where they are building awareness on mental health and inclusion in Pakistan. They have a multidisciplinary therapy centre that support children that are struggling in lots of different ways, finding it difficult to be in school, etc. So a very warm welcome to you, Aysha. It's lovely to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for inviting me to this. Yes, it's always good to hear from you and to hear about whatever you're doing. So yeah, thank you for inviting me for this special talk.
It's my pleasure because I know you have a wealth of experience with this topic, and we're tapping into all the experts around the world that understand about children's mental health and how important it is. So let's dive in. For you, in quite simple terms, how would you define mental health? What does mental health mean to you, and how do we define it for children?
Right. So, the way I see mental health is something part of a whole. Human beings, there's the physical health, the mental health, and the spiritual health, and everything is connected with each other. So, when we look at mental health, we can't look at it in isolation because, in fact, when we look at health, it's a whole, right? So the
Mm.
holistic aspect of health is very important when you're talking about mental health. So as a mental health practitioner, I feel when I'm looking at someone and trying to support them, I try and look at the whole picture rather than, you know, just the mental health aspect for it because everything's connected with each other. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
absolutely. Mind, body, heart, spirit, environment, everything is going to influence our mental health, and especially our very, I think, aware, sensitive children. All of those aspects need to be examined. Thank you. So, what would you say unsettles or disturbs a child's mental health? What sort of challenges are you finding that the children you work with are facing?
Right. So, when working with children, the part of our work is to gather information from parents. And, what we understand after doing so many consultation, what I understand is that the pre-birth aspect of, the child, when the child is conceived, how the child was conceived, how was the mother's emotional health during pregnancy, all that is so important. And sometimes because culturally we have extended families living with us, for us to help families understand that this period is so important for a woman and for the family because you're talking about impact to your next generation. The care that needs to go in that period, whether it's nutrition or whether it's the home environment or whether it's the emotional stress is so important. So one of the work that we try and help people or parents understand or people who come to us is that phase, that how you arrived where you arrived right now, and it's not an easy and quick kind of a fix or it's helping them or making them a little more aware of that journey. So yeah, so it's not only what is happening in the present, it's also investigating what happened in the past and how children arrived at this point, if it's behavior, if it's something psychological, if it's something emotional, or if there is neurodivergence involved, specific learning disability. So wherever the issues are, just helping gain aspects of history from pre-birth to present is very important. Yeah, so many things play into this. The environment, what's happening in the, if you ask about the children, then academics, what's happening in school. Tagline is, we hold the system that holds the child. So looking at the different
Mm.
systems that children are connected with, right? There's the home environment, the school environment, the extended families, the peer group. So these children are held by so many systems, and we need to tap into all the systems and see what's going on there and how is it impacting the child. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I really love that. We hold the systems that hold the child. Beautiful, because they are so influential, and some of them are, I think, we're not necessarily awake to. We're in the soup. We're in that, and we need to step out and actually observe, actually, is this school supporting my child? Is this school the right school? It's not necessarily that the school is doing anything wrong. It's just, does this fit for my child's needs? And similarly, I think with all different environments, I think you're absolutely right that all of these aspects are going to impact on a child's mental health and how they feel about themselves, how they actually respond to the challenges they're facing. And of course, they're going to potentially mimic and react the way maybe the adults in the room are reacting towards them, and then internalize that and generate either really healthy responses to themselves, or actually, even with the best will in the world, sometimes those responses from adults actually can be received very differently. Yes, so absolutely, I think it's really good to look holistically, systemically, and what's happening within that family unit as well. Around the world, obviously, we've got very different approaches to being a family unit. I think one of the biggest challenges in the UK now is that we're quite isolated, that we are these nuclear families. We can be really tiny, and we don't have that support. It's interesting, obviously you do have that extended family, but of course there's different influences that may or may not be helpful for maybe the mum trying to navigate being a new parent. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in our society now, people are moving towards nuclear family systems, but they are also understanding that that is sometimes not very helpful, as you said, the isolation that comes with it. So just striking a balance. I mean, I grew in an extended family system, and I know the benefits that I got from. So it's also how that, taking the goodness from that extended family, right? Taking the goodness of the different systems that operate in society and how we can benefit from that. I think that's the essential question that everyone needs to ask. That,
Yes.
what is the good in spaces that have existed for so many years, and how we've, taking the goodness from our, ancestors and the good practices that they had as parents. I think that's
Yes.
essential also as we move forward.
Yes, tapping into that ancient wisdom, not letting it go, and
Yeah.
weaving it into our modern society. Yes, I think that there's definitely a movement, certainly in the UK, in education. There's an understanding how important play is now for our children, actually ensuring that they have more time to play, because that's the way they're learning and supporting their mind health through exploration, through play, being outside a lot more. So there is this evolution. There's an understanding, certainly in the UK, that we're coming back to those ancient wisdom, that clarity that is so important for, as you said right at the beginning, the holistic need of a child.
When you raise the question of play, I had a beautiful tutor, a very lovely tutor, who once said, you know what, she asked a group of us while she was training us, do you know what's the opposite of play? And, some people said work and different answers. She said depression. The opposite of play is depression. People think that, we grow up thinking that, okay, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, right? But then there's also so many, like in Urdu, there's also a saying that if you read and write, you will be a noble person. And if you don't play, if you play, you will, end up poorly. So, you have
Interesting.
to, like strike a balance between all of that. And play is so essential. It doesn't have to be. If I can add a little story, while I was training some teachers, and, I said there will be no table because that's how I work. They said there will be no paper. We don't have to write anything. Okay, what are we learning then? So it was a very conventional kind of school, and that's what they expected in a classroom. Yeah, that's how they were teaching.
Yes.
So for them to, I made them play with balloons, I made them play with, and they were learning at the same time. It was so transformational for them that, okay, they could learn and play at the same time. That was something because they hadn't grown in an environment like that. They hadn't had that kind of things. Like even like if we look at my schooling days, it was much later that play was integrated into
Mm.
learning. It was quite challenging before that, like,
Yes.
sitting on a desk and table and just trying to write and focus and pay attention to all that.
Yes. And I think one of the most wonderful things about that story is, already I've got a vision about them playing with the balloons and all the other fun things they did. It's then memorable. And of course, our brain is likely to remember it and apply it. And because we know the brain shuts down if it's stressed. I did a similar exercise, but it was the opposite of that. When I was in Australia, we did some brilliant training and we were set a task, and it was an impossible task. It was very, very complex. Some sort of origami, folding, difficult. Luckily, we were put in pairs so we could support each other. But actually, it was a brilliant lesson reminding us that learning can be very stressful. And all the stories in my head, because we all talked about it afterwards, what's going on because I can't work out the answer, and how stressful it was, and how I was so grateful because my partner also had no idea how to do this really difficult thing, and all the emotions. And I didn't want to sit down. I wanted to move my body, and it really shone a brilliant light that I think we forget the joy of learning and also the challenge of learning, and how play can really help a child's mental health to just embrace the experience, see it as a challenge, not as a threat. Do you know?
So true, so true. And, this, in a classroom setting, often what we forget is creating that safe space. It's so important for learning, even, like everyone's goal is to make the child learn something. And internally, the child's not feeling safe. It could
Mm.
be for several reasons. Maybe a home environment that's not safe, or maybe the school environment that's not safe. Or, like which reminds me of another exercise that I do with teachers, actually working with teachers. And it's so impactful every time I do it. I do it as the sorting hat of Harry Potter. So I do it in different ways. Sometimes I take the hat and I say that, okay, there's the inner circle and the outer circle. So I will pick and choose. I'll be the sorting hat, and I often make them wear it. And, then I decide who'll be in the inner circle and who'll be in the outer circle. I never tell them how I'm doing it, but I emphasize, like in the beginning, they know that I'm I'm a counselor, mental health care practitioner. So, they know that, they have vague ideas that I'm a mind reader or something. So they are so perplexed, and the emotions that come out, just like the last training that I did, this was a head principal. And she said, when you turned and looked at me, right, and you invited me in the inner circle, I don't know what happened to me. I just felt like I wanted my mom. And that was you can't imagine how that like moved me, and it was such a powerful, declaration. And for me to help everyone understand that, the way we look at children, sometimes we have an idea that, okay, we will group them. And when we don't explain to them what's happening, they get all sorts of ideas because, they have their own images. Maybe they're carrying from the self-concept has already been formed in a negative way from the way they're seen at home or by their peers or, by the previous teacher or the school, who knows, the extended family. So all that, and such adults, if they could feel regress and go into that childhood, we can just imagine these kids who don't even have the vocabulary to explain what's going on with them, how these things can be, the grouping, the sorting, making a child sit in a separate corner, maybe for their benefit because they're feeling very overwhelmed. But when we don't help with the meaning making process, then it becomes very difficult for the child.
Yes, I think there's so many really important points there, and to be able to step into the child's shoes to make sure that they feel safe and as best we can communicate so they feel safe and understand what's happening, because you're absolutely right, that narrative that's going on in their head that we can't see. I mean, that's obviously everything about Booster and Crusher we talk about. That's the ultimate pain point, because if they're telling themselves a story that they're stupid, they don't belong, they're not good enough, they don't fit in, whatever it is, then learning just will not take place, and nor will that lovely bond of relationships, friendships, and coming back to fun, having fun and being able to feel comfortable to play. So absolutely, I think yes. There's so much to unpack there, but I know we must pull all these threads together. To close then, Aysha, what would advice, guidance, support would you offer to a child or a young person who was struggling in some way with their mental health? I appreciate there's a big age range there, so responses will be different. Or maybe you'd like to share perhaps what you would say to a parent, because I know you're very experienced in working and helping parents when their child is struggling. So I'll leave the question open for you. What's the first or some of the key things you would suggest?
I think, it's important. And this I'm speaking with a lot of humility because I've been a parent, I'm a grandparent. I have made so many mistakes, but learning all the time, right? So, one thing that the best thing that we can do for our children is, give them our presence. And the more present we are, the more we will be able to listen to the cues that they offer us, the behaviors that sometimes we brand them as, they're so, they're not listening to us, or they're not complying with us, they're being headstrong, or they're throwing a tantrum, and they're giving us a hard time. Just looking at all those behaviors is not information, and this I'm speaking to parents, that not as information that you're a bad parent or you're doing something wrong, but just as an offering that, okay, if my child is behaving this way, this is information for me. I need to be that, that detective that you have a great workbook about.
Yes.
Yeah, that inner detective. As a parent also, you have to be, help your child develop that inner detective by being curious about their behavior. Why is it that every time, on Mondays, my child says that he has a stomach ache and doesn't want to go to school, instead of me screaming and, saying, I'm getting late for work and you always do this on Monday, there is information for you that you might be missing. So why on Mondays? What's happening on Mondays? Let me find out from the school. Yeah. What subject does he have? Or maybe I can start a conversation on, that, okay, it seems like every Monday, it's difficult for you to go. You seem very happy the other days. I would want to know what's going on, like I really want to help you. Uh, is there something mama can do? Is there something I can do? Or the dads can say, I've noticed this, can I help you? Do you want me to, so just creating that opening where you're curious and you're not judging them, you're not shaming them, and you're giving them space. So maybe not the first time, but gradually they will start opening. So when you're present, you are open to the information the child is giving you, whether it's verbal or whether it's non-verbal. So that's the biggest advice I can give to parents. Also, if you want good behavior or you desire certain values in your children, when you have children, um, I'll say God because God gives you a second opportunity. To me, I mean, that's how I feel, that He gives you a second chance to be to grow into the person that you want to be, right? Or the better version of yourself, right? So the things that you want, the values, the good values you want in your children, you want to role model it for them.
Yes, be that value,
Yeah.
live that value.
So it's almost maybe you don't have it yet. So here's your chance because you want it.
Yes.
I know, like my grandson, kids they don't have filters, yeah. And they are like mirrors, they will show you who you are by repeating certain things that you don't
Yep.
want them to repeat. And,
Yes.
there's a big thing about backbiting, yeah. And I was discussing it with my daughter-in-law, instead of us telling the kids not to repeat, I think we need to check on what we are saying about someone. So it's
Absolutely.
so there are little things that you can do, and which you might be, instead before dealing with bigger stuff, there are small things that you can shift in your lives, and you can work on yourselves, and in a way, then be that will be benefit for your child who's under you or under your care. And this goes for teachers, anyone who's caring for that child. And for the child, just letting them know because they see the world, as you said before, that they understand themselves through the lens of the adults who are around them. So if
Mm.
we see them as bad or if we see them as not good enough, that's what they carry with them. And that
Yes.
will show up or come up again and again in their behavior. So letting them know that what good we see in them, right? And there's always goodness in all of us because the core of us is very pure and good. And that's what we need to tap into. I tell, when parents have a list of things to say about their children, this is what they don't do. So then say, okay, can we pause just now? If you were to look through the magnifying glass, is there something that you can look and find? I'm sure there's something that, oh, yes, of course. Then, they pause and then
Yes.
they realize, of course, they have, because so many people have been, they come to you because everyone's been, feeling that, giving them
Judging.
feedback about what good they're not doing, right? So they also
Mm.
full of it when they come to you. And,
Yes.
when you make them pause and revisit and help them see that, okay, these are the strengths your kid has. He's very good. Whenever I come from work, he's the first one who comes to me and says, Dad, can I carry your bag? Give me
Mm.
water, something. They will always have something to share, which is
Yes. So really focus on the good, see that first and demonstrate how much that's valued. Yes, lovely.
and make the booster inside every child stronger this way. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Aysha, I could talk to you all day, but we must close now. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and all your incredible experience. I love your Centre of Inclusive Care. I love the way you approach supporting the not just the child, but the family that are supporting, and obviously all the systems you talked about, the schools and the environment that the child is in, because that really does make a huge difference so that these children can feel good about who they are and learn the skills for themselves to cope when things are difficult, because they will, they will come across these ups and downs in life. So really appreciate you taking the time to share for Children's Mental Health Week in the UK, and wishing you all the continued success that you can reach as many children and schools with your wonderful work. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Kathryn, for this invitation. It was lovely talking to you about a shared passion that we have, and that's the children that we work for.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, darling. Have you found this curious conversation helpful? The Inner Detective Journal might be just what you need. It's a gentle, powerful way to help young children build lifelong coping skills with kindness from within. Click the link to get your copy for your child, your class, maybe your entire organization if they've got children, so you can help them through the tough times. Let's keep listening and keep supporting children's mental health together.